All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Committee on Labor and Housing. We are glad to be back in session hearing from the folks. This is a session of public hearings. The purpose of these public hearings is to gather testimony from the public about the bills and legislation that we're going to hear today, to hear from the sponsors, as well as to provide the committee an opportunity to ask questions. This will be viewed over the internet on these fine Zoom channels, and you can live stream this from our page if you are not in the committee room today. We are very happy to welcome a new clerk to the committee, Justin Purvis, who will be the person you'll call if you have any technical questions. If you are a panelist waiting to testify, you'll see that there is a chat function. That chat function is just used for technical questions, such as where am I on the testimony, or I have to leave for a minute, those sorts of pieces, not for commentary about the testimony that's ongoing in the committee. We also welcome our analyst, Steve Langland, and the rest of the committee, who we will go around to at the moment and introduce. And we'll start with Senator Mehrmont.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you finally. Dave Mehrmont, Senator for Senate District 12, Knox County, which is every town except the town of Washington.
Representative Pebworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Pebworth. I represent the Blue Hill Peninsula, which includes Blue Hill, Brooksville, Brooklyn, Castine, Sedgwick, and Surrey.
Representative Cuddy.
Good morning. My name is Scott Cuddy. I represent House District 98, which is Winterport, Frankfort, Searsport, and Swanville, and I live in Winterport.
Representative Drinkwater.
Good morning, Representative Drinkwater from District 121.
Representative Geer.
Good morning, I'm Tracy Geer. I represent House District 9, which is Kennebunkport and Coastal Biddeford and Kennebunk.
Representative Bradstreet.
Good morning. I am Representative Dick Bradstreet, representing House District 80. That's Vassalboro, Windsor, Somerville, and part of Augusta.
Representative Prescott.
I'm Prescott. I represent Waterboro and part of Lyman.
Representative Morris.
Good morning. I'm Representative Joshua Morris. I represent House District 75, which is Turner, Leeds, and part of Livermore.
And Representative Warren.
Good morning. I'm Representative Sophie Warren, and I represent my hometown here in Scarborough, Maine.
Thank you, everybody. And I am Representative Mike Sylvester. I represent District 39, which is the Eastern Peninsula portion of Portland and the Fighting Islands of Casco Bay. I am the House Chair of this committee this morning, and I will be chairing this session. We will be going a little out of order in terms of how it's posted due to scheduling. And so we will be doing Senator Jackson's bill LD 1840 first, and then we'll be doing 1746, 1753, 1808, 1823, 555, and then if Senator Hickman is able to leave VLA, he is the wild card. He has a bill that we need to hear from today, and so if he's able to come in, we might bump one or more of these in order to be able to fit him in. But right now we have him as last. All right, and with that, we will, do we have, Justin, do we have Senator Jackson ready?
I just promoted him. He should be all set in just a second.
Perfect. Then I will open the hearing, the public hearing on LD 1840. an act to amend the laws governing retirement benefit reductions for corrections supervisors currently included in the 1998 special plan. Representative, before I welcome Senator Jackson, Representative Pebworth, are you able to time today? Perfect. And Representative, the sponsors have unlimited time, the sponsors of the legislation, but for folks who might be coming to testify later in the day, we have a 3-minute timing, and Representative Pebworth will hold up her phone to let you know that you're at 30 seconds and then let you know when your time is up. And with that, we welcome Senate President Jackson. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Representative Sylvester and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Troy Jackson, and I represent the good people of Northern Aroostook County in Senate District 1. And I'm here today to lend my support for LD 1840, an act to amend the laws governing retirement benefit reductions for corrections supervisors currently included in the 1998 special plan. As you all are likely aware, the original intent behind creating the 1998 special plan for retirement was to recognize the fact that certain public sector jobs, such as those in law enforcement, are inherently more dangerous and stressful than others. The mental and physical toll of spending a career and working in facilities that are often unpredictable and sometimes violent is extremely difficult and often dangerous. Therefore, it is unreasonable to expect these workers to maintain their health and stay in the job until what is considered normal retirement age. Therefore, this bill aims to include those few state correctional supervisors who are not included in the 1998 special plan. Undoubtedly, as those who testify after me will make plain, the 1998 special plan is very complicated, which is why from time to time, the legislature recognizes those state employees who should be added to this plan. Each time a new cost analysis must be done because the number of workers who may have qualified in the past has decreased. The scope of LD 1840 is limited. It only recognizes those supervisors who were employed prior to January 1, 2000. In closing, I would ask that you consider adding these dedicated workers to the 98 special plan for retirement. Now is the time to recognize the dedication and the service they provide to the state. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. I know that there's people coming behind me that asked me to put the bill in that has a better idea, but I know I testified last year at this committee on this issue. We've dealt with a lot throughout my entire time. There's a lot of inequities in the retirement plan that you all have to deal with. This is another one that I'm still struggling with the fact that prior to January 1, 2000, we have so many cliffs in the retirement system that, to me feels very unfair. This is another one, but like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions. I thank the committee for their time, but there's probably people that understand it better than me coming up after.
Thank you, President Jackson. Are there any questions from the committee for Senator Jackson? Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator, for being here this morning. I'm just, the bill says corrections supervisors are currently our corrections personnel, any other personnel included in the plan, in the 1998 special plan?
Honestly, Representative Bradstreet, that may be a question for somebody behind, but I do believe that there are, because the bill talks about before January 1, 2000, which is not the normal date for people that get the rug pulled out from underneath them. It was July 1st, 1998. So I'm not really sure what happened there, but there's people, unfortunately, that feel like they should have been in the 98 plan that aren't, and this bill aims to try and correct that.
Hey, Mr. Chair, thank you for that. I sometimes I ask these questions for not only the person right there, but people coming behind. So
Yeah,
anything,
that's fine.
feel free to answer. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for the good senator? Seeing none, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, Justin, if you could bring forward Penny Bailey and Jeff McCabe.
All set. They should be coming through.
Okay, great. And I am going to recognize Penny Bailey first. So if you could both turn on your videos, that would be great.
Good morning.
Welcome to the committee, Ms. Bailey. You have 3 minutes. Please start whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Penny Bailey. As you've heard, I am a correctional supervisor since 1987 here at the Correctional Center for the Department of Corrections. A few things that I'd just like to share about some statistics about the stress that we are under on a regular basis. Life expectancy for most correctional staff is about 58 years old. 27% of all prison workers have symptoms that are severe enough to be diagnosed with PTSD. This is nationwide, by the way. And that is a PTSD rate 10 times higher than the general population. Heart disease affects correctional staff at a rate that is 50% higher than any other occupational due to stress levels. Which kind of means that inside of a prison, we are generally in a constant fight or flight type situation. Our body stays in kind of a stress response when you're working inside with the population at all times. And those are all good reasons why correctional staff are placed in the special retirement as of 2001. And again, this is for those years prior to 2001 that we worked, where we are required to work till we're 62 or take penalties for that. If requirement to work till you're 62, our age limits our ability to respond physically when we're on the inside. That puts residents and inmates and our fellow staff at risk when we're responding to emergency situations, because as we all know that when we get older, we are a little bit slower, we get hurt a lot easier, those types of things, and we have lesser abilities. The 1998 was fixed for all of those staff that are not supervisors in the supervisory union. So I think that somebody had a question about that earlier, that it was fixed last year in the special retirement plan, and it has not been fixed for the supervisory staff that work directly with the population, and that's what apparently this bill is for. Staff that have started in 1908 under this plan can retire with no penalties in 2003. For myself, that in 2003 I will have 37 years, 37 plus years of time in, and I'll have people that have started almost 10 years after me with the ability to retire without penalties prior to leaving. And those penalties are quite significant for the 5 years that I would have to be waiting to retire. My husband, excuse me?
If you've reached your time, if you could wrap up shortly.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. And it's approximately like $2,400 to $3,600 per year of penalties that we would take for those 10 years that we have not been we're in the regular retirement package. So again, people that started somewhere around 10 years after. And I ask that you give the bill a serious consideration for my safety, for safety of my fellow staff, and safety of the inmates that we oversee. And I just appreciate the time that you guys have given me for this testimony.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey. We appreciate you being here today. Are there any questions from the committee for Ms. Bailey? I have a quick one. Ms. Bailey, roughly how many of your colleagues are there? I might have missed it in your testimony, but
I don't know the exact number, but right now, I don't believe there's that many. I think we're talking like 6 to 12 people that are in this category. It was fixed for all of the line staff, all of the non-supervisory staff, and we're just hoping it gets fixed for those of us that are still inside the walls and working it.
thank you so much. Seeing no further questions, we thank you so much for being here today. And I will recognize the Honorable Jeff McCabe for the first time in this short session. Welcome, Mr. McCabe.
Good morning. Thank you, Representative Sylvester, members of the Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Jeff McCabe. I serve as the Director of Legislation and Politics for Maine Service Employees Association. We represent over 13,000 workers here in the state of Maine, including the corrections supervisors, such as you've heard from a corrections captain and unit manager, as well as you've been hearing from some of the other folks via written testimony as well, who also serve in supervisory roles. We are here today in strong support of LD 1840. This legislation addresses a needed correction from legislation passed in 2021, which created an equity issue involving correction supervisors employed in Maine DOC. As you recall, last year, the legislature enacted LD 190, removing the early retirement penalty for corrections officers. This legislation covered certain corrections officers. Another term you could think about using for those folks is guards. That might help because I know some of these terms are very similar in name. This was a fix in the special plan for those folks who received a direct care stipend and who were covered by the AFSCME union. However, that enacted legislation did not remove that same early penalty for corrections supervisors whom MSEA represents. In most cases, these corrections supervisors have been promoted from other positions within corrections. In many cases, these folks were corrections officers and then became supervisors. In doing so, these corrections captains, unit managers, juvenile probation managers, and other supervisory positions are now left out of the fix that LD 190 was meant to fix. These corrections supervisors who aren't covered by LD 90 worked in direct care and security and work in housing units with the same workers who benefited from last year's passage of LD 190. Fortunately, there's a solution. LD 1840 would remove the early retirement penalties for corrections supervisors who are stuck in a loophole that they did not get fixed last year. I included in my testimony some testimony from previous bills associated with this, specifically information from Maine PERS that explains this split reduction. This is what happens when folks are stuck between two plans. And just to answer the question from Representative Bradstreet, there remains pockets of folks here within state government, sort of small pockets of folks who are stuck between these two retirements. These are folks that have long-standing service with the state of Maine. You did hear from Ms. Bailey earlier. This is an issue not only for her, but also for her husband, who also serves as a supervisor and has had a long-standing career with corrections here in the state of Maine. My point in quoting that Maine PERS testimony is with LD 1840, we're seeking to accomplish the same objective that was accomplished last year. Senator President Jackson has also been a champion on this issue and described the mental and physical toll of guarding and protecting other officers and those under care of the Department of Corrections. And it's extremely burdensome, as he stated, for these workers. And it also takes a toll both on their physical and mental health, as stated earlier today. Corrections retirement is, yep.
Just going to let you know that you're at time, if you could wrap up.
Absolutely. I would just ask the committee briefly that the committee consider allowing MSEA, Maine PERS, and DAFs to work on a list just to figure out the exact number of employees whose hire dates and service to the state of Maine has them stuck straddling these two plans, and that we work with Maine PERS to correct the appropriate statutory language to correct this, as well as the creation of a fiscal note moving forward in the next couple of weeks. I think that what we are seeing is just an issue of retention because there are folks that are just frustrated in walking off of the job based on the fact that they just can't see the light at the end of the tunnel at this point in time. And we believe this legislation will help fix that retention issue moving forward. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCabe. I see that Representative Bradstreet has a question.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. McCabe. Good to see you again. I'm wondering if, I think probably you answered the question I was going to ask about how many people we're talking who are caught between two different plans. It's nice to have a comprehensive look before we decide on any one group, I think. And also, just for clarification, if a person were a guard, I think is the term we call down there, and they were promoted to supervisory position, which we're talking about today, which plan are they covered under?
Yeah, thank you, Representative. It's also nice to see you. It's good to be back before the committee. They would be covered under the 1998 plan. And the situation has to do with folks that have this longstanding service. I believe that you heard from the former presenter in regards to folks being hired after she had been hired by DOC, and those folks automatically fell into that 1998 special plan. And so those folks are automatically in that plan. Folks going forward, hired into corrections would be part of that plan. But it's really these folks who have service previous to those years that were mentioned that sort of straddle two plans. Those folks are part of a plan that the rest of state employees are part of, and also part of the 1998 special plan. So they actually have service in both plans. I know it's extremely confusing, and I hope that sort of clarified slightly. The issue that I have in calculating the exact number of individuals is that some of our data that we have, we don't necessarily have the correct starting date for all of the employees within our database. And that has to do with some of these folks as they promote the information that we obtain from the state. So what we would do is have to take a look at the positions, the people in the positions. We'd have to talk with Maine PERS and also get some clarification with the administration and the folks at DAFs, just to make sure our list is as accurate as possible. And that's something I think that you've heard from Maine PERS in recent weeks. We've met with Maine PERS and the new director in regards to their willingness to work more with the legislature, to work more with members of Maine PERS. And we're excited to hear that commitment. We also recognize that we need to be better collaborators moving forward. And that's something that we will look to do to work with Maine PERS. And I think in the future, probably before public hearings is the best time to try to sort these things out, but we're just not necessarily there in that working relationship with Maine PERS. And if directed by the committee, we'll get there. And in the future, that's our goal, is to work closer with those folks.
Thank you, Mr. McCabe, for that. Are there any other questions for Mr. McCabe from the committee? Mr. McCabe, since we have a minute here, one of the things I think that is confusing sometimes, and I wonder if you could elaborate, is the fact that supervisors have their own collective bargaining unit. So even though we talk about there being a state contract for employees, there are different bargaining units within that, within the main contract. I guess I'm just testifying now. So, so isn't that correct, sir, that the supervisors have their own collective bargaining unit, since I'm springing this on you on an early morning?
Yeah, no, thank you, Representative, for the question. And I will agree with you, and I'm happy to provide. We actually have a new contract across all our units, supervisory, admin, and I can share those links with the committee just so that the committee can understand. But just to clarify and to make sure that the committee realizes, retirement is something that is not part of those agreements. Changes to retirement is something that requires legislative action. And I know that we get that quite frequently, that question. So
that's where I was hoping you would go. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Oh,
Chair. for that question.
Representative Drinkwater, before I let you go, has a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. McCabe. I've got a memo here from Opler dated March 7th, 2021. In it, it says that it died on the appropriations table due to the cost. And Maine Piers provided a list at that time, which said there was 37 positions. So I'm going to assume that that would have to be around the same number. Is that your understanding also? That it died on the appropriations table?
Are you referring to LD 190?
Yes. LD 190, which we took up last year.
I had thought that LD 190 had become law, unless I'm referencing the wrong LD number. There was also, if you look, are you looking at, there was this corrections bill has come up now. This is the third sort of iteration of it. There was the session that ended due to COVID in the state of emergency. There was a bill associated with retirement fixes during that session that probably died on the appropriations table. But I believe LD 190 became law.
But it wasn't funded, is what my little memo here says.
I believe that there was a funding source associated with LD 190, and I believe it may have been some. I will have to double check, but I do believe it was funded because I know that there are individuals who have retired under that change. Those are folks that are not supervisors. Those are folks that are corrections officers. Those folks in the guard positions. So something did occur there for Maine PERS to get the funding, and I will double check, Representative, to figure that out. I did miss the last few days of session. I was out on parental leave, and if you do hear noise in the background, our 6-month-old has discovered his voice in the last 48 hours. So the screeching is actually out of joy, Representative. So, but I will check on that actual funding source, and I did see some activity in the chat that did say LD 190 became law, but I will figure out how it was funded and let you know.
All right, thank you. And perhaps for the work session, we could have a number of positions that would affect. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKay. We appreciate you being here today. And luckily, we have Ms. Moran, Kathy Moran, coming to testify next, but I will get to her in a moment. Is there anyone else, Justin, to testify in favor of the legislation?
Not that I have seen.
Is there anyone to testify in opposition? And this is something that we do after every, I'm going to go through and ask this since in the Zoom format, people can pop up who thought that they testified. I will always ask the clerk whether or not there's anybody that is not on my screen who wanted to testify in either of the 3 categories that people come to testify for. Is there anybody in opposition, Justin?
See, I apologize. I do see a Harvey Bailey. I'm not sure if it's opposed or not. I'll have to take a look. It came in late.
I think that is written testimony, unless he is here in the.
Yeah, I saw other Billy, so I want to make sure I didn't skip. Yeah. Yes. No, I do not have anybody waiting.
Perfect. Then we will move to testimony neither for nor against. And I recognize Ms. Moore from Maine PERS. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. Senator Hickman, I see him on the screen, but I don't see his picture, so I'm not sure if he's there. Representative Sylvester and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Housing and Labor. My name is Kathy Moran. I'm the Manager of Actuarial and Legislative Affairs for the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. Maine PERS, as is typical, is neither for nor against LD 1840, and we're here to provide you with any information that would be helpful for you and as you consider this bill. Just by way of some explanation that may or may not answer some questions about the plans, state employees are covered by either a regular plan or a special plan. The majority of state employees are covered by the regular plan, which requires 25 years of service and or attainment of normal retirement age of 60, 62, or 65. Special plans typically allow for retirement with fewer years of service and or at a younger age. Because of the more favorable provisions of the special plans, they are more expensive to fund. Department of Corrections employees included in LD 1840 have been covered in the 1998 special plan since January 1 of 2000. Under this plan, participants become eligible to retire in one of two ways: by accruing 25 years of service in a covered capacity, or by accruing 10 years in a covered, by accruing 10 years under the 1998 special plan and attaining age 55. Under the first provision, all services in a covered capacity is counted towards meeting the 25-year requirement, while under the second provision, only service earned in a covered capacity after the date that a specific group is included in the plan is counted toward meeting the 10-year requirement. Benefits are calculated based upon the plan under which the service was earned. The result for those members with some service in a regular plan, which is the case we're talking here, and some service in a special plan is what we call a split age reduction, such that the regular plan service is reduced for early retirement prior to 60, 62, or 65, and the special plan service is reduced for early retirement only if retirement is prior to age 55. Members with all or a high percentage of their service under the 1998 special plan are more greatly advantaged by this plan. LD 1840 would change the manner in which certain Department of Corrections employees are included in the 1998 special plan. Specifically, it would treat all service, whenever earned, as being earned in the special plan and therefore no longer subject to the split age reduction that I just explained. The result for many impacted members would be the ability to retire at a younger age with an increased retirement benefit. This bill will have a fiscal impact in that it would require immediate funding of the increased liabilities created by permitting past service of the covered employees to be included in the special plan in compliance with the state constitution. MainPERS will work with the department and the Office of Fiscal and Program Review and with Jeff and his staff to identify the individuals covered by this proposal and to provide an estimate of the costs associated with amending the retirement plan coverage for this group of employees. Thank you for your consideration of this testimony. I'd be happy to answer any questions and will be available at your work session.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Moore, nice to see you again.
Thank you.
You mentioned that because of the more favorable provisions of the special plan, they are more expensive to fund. If you have an employee, we know that there's a percentage kept out that goes towards their retirement and the employer has to match it. If you're under a special plan, does that percentage increase for those under the special plan? And if you don't know, we can perhaps get that for the work session.
Yeah. So there are two pieces of the cost, of course, normal cost and the UAL cost. The normal cost is broken down between the employee and the employer. The employee cost typically for the special plan is 1% higher. There are groups of employees though, and I think that's the case with the DOC employees, where the state picks up most of the employee contribution. So the employee pays 1.15%. So the state picks up the remaining portion of the employee contribution and also pays the employer portion of the contribution. The employer normal cost for the special plans is in fact higher than the normal cost for the regular plan. So they definitely are higher, and we can, if you want details of those rates, we can certainly get that information for you.
I would appreciate that for the work session. Thank you.
Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Question. I think you mentioned that for the special plan, it starts at a younger age, plus there are more benefits. Do you mean more benefits per month, starting immediately, or just because there's a longer duration of the benefits being reaped?
Right, thank you. The benefits are typically, it's not a higher in terms of the calculation. It's a function of there being less of a reduction for early retirement, and the fact that if the person retires younger in age, they do receive a longer, typically, they will receive benefits for a longer period of time. So that does have a higher cost for letting the person retire at 55, for example, with no reduction for those longer benefits as compared to retiring at 60 or 62, which is what the 55, the regular plan requires.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Moore? Seeing none, thank you for being here today. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
you as always.
Thank you.
Justin, is there anyone else looking to testify on LD 1840?
I'm not seeing anything in the chat. No.
All right, perfect. Then I will close the public hearing on LD 1840. And we will open the public hearing on LD 1753, which is an act regarding the retirement of law enforcement officers under the participating local district retirement program. And do we have Representative Davis? Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Davis. Justin, if you would promote him if he was in the.
Is that Paul Davis?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, I will promote Paul Davis.
Thank you.
He should be coming through the loophole in just a second.
Thank you. Welcome, Senator Davis.
Good morning.
I almost sent you back over to the House. So,
well, I served there, and it's a very nice place to be.
I think you have better coffee over in the Senate. But the floor is yours, sir, whenever you are ready.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and honorable members of the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is Paul Davis, and I am honored to represent the people of Senate District 4, which includes all of Piscataquis County, parts of Somerset and Penobscot. It also has the two high points of the state of Maine, Moosehead Lake and Mount Katahdin in it. I am here today to present LD 1753, an act regarding the retirement of law enforcement officers under the participating local district retirement plan. I am sure, like myself, I'm sure that many of you have received calls from folks that are retired in the law enforcement community, local deputy sheriffs and local police officers. I'm sure you've gotten calls from state police officers and federal retirees that would like to see a change in the retirement system for local police and for sheriff's departments. This particular legislation, which I put in at the request of some constituents, is intended to address the retirement of local law enforcement officers. Burnout amongst members of law enforcement is not unheard of. Officers' lives are at risk every day as they address crime, distress calls, and long work hours. According to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, in 2020, there were 295 deaths. That's 156 more than the previous year, and the highest year recorded since 1930. Simply put, our officers are under a lot of stress. And after 26 years of law enforcement, my constituent, the one in particular, is definitely feeling the burnout. Now, I served 30 years in law enforcement. I was blessed that I had a 20-year plan under the Maine State Police. But to say that it wasn't stressful would be a huge fabrication. For a number of years, I was in the Rangeley area. I was the only one north of Strong, Maine. And therefore, I had to handle the whole area by myself. There wasn't anybody else to call that would be there on time to help me. And called into every kind of situation that you can imagine. I remember one night, a young woman called me. She had her baby. She needed to get some of the baby's clothes and things. Went to the trailer. As I stepped through the door, she said, "My husband's passed out in there, but he's got a gun." Well, you talk about stress. Immediately, I had a lot of stress. I heard a story the other day of a young man who answered a call. There was a fellow that was hurt quite badly. The gentleman was in the bedroom. There was a pit bull between the gentleman and the police officer. The gentleman was screaming at the officer to help him and also not to hurt the dog at the same time. That's quite a position to be put into, and it obviously was very stressful. And I could go on and on and on and tell you all kinds of them. This gentleman, this officer that talked to me about this after 26 years, he can't retire until he's age 60. And he's 52 or 3. So he'll have his 25, he'll have his time in before he reaches age 60. He's got his 26 years in now, gets 25 years in now, what he actually has to have. This bill would change the participating local district retirement program so that members of law enforcement who choose to participate in the program and have served 25 years may retire without penalty, regardless of how old they are. And I would point out that the Maine State Police and the Warden Service have that provision now in their benefit package. I think this will be beneficial for our members of our law enforcement, but also for all members. It's a lot easier to deal with an officer that shows up, it's got a smile on his face, than it is to deal with one that feels like the whole world is on his shoulders. If someone feels they are ready to retire, whether it be due to burnout or another reason, I think they should be able to do so. Now, certainly a cost to this. Be foolish not to think there is. I know the retirement system is going to come in, and that's their job to tell us about the cost. I think there's a number of ways to do it. I would suggest that during the work session, we could have a good discussion on that in different ways. And I also would say to you that I support the previous bill that President Jackson had in on the corrections officers. They have a very stressful time of it too. So with that, thank you for your time and your consideration, and I will try to answer any questions that I am posed. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Davis. Are there any questions for the good senator? Representative Bradstreet.
Yes, thank you once again, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator, for being here. This is again for anybody who could coming after you who may want to answer it. I guess not all local plans are participate in the retirement program. Maybe somebody could explain that later on. It's up to the community or municipality. Is that correct?
I think if they offer the plan, they have to offer it to everybody, but some towns don't. I think there's a town quite close to where I live that has opted out of it, and all the people that were involved in it drew their money out and are no longer in it. They now contribute to a 457 plan, which is just like a 401. It's a private plan that you set up yourself, and you can direct your money to go wherever you want it to go. But this would, what my idea would be leave this up to the officers. If they want to participate in the retirement plan, let them. And as I said before, I'm sure there's a number of ways to reduce the costs to the communities and whatever. But that's another discussion.
Representative Gear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for being here, Senator Davis, and presenting this bill. I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear on the intention of the bill. Is the intention to replace the age of 55 with 25 years of service? It appears that way in my reading of the text. Or is the intention to offer an or that if you either have 25 years of service or have reached age 55?
Currently, there's several different plans offered. And what the bill would do would offer up a straight 25-year plan for any officer that wanted to participate in it. Right now, as I understand it, some towns offer 2560, 2562, that type of thing. This would put into place a plan of straight 25 years. After 25 years of service, an officer could retire should they want to.
And can I ask a follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Yes, you may.
So how would this apply, Senator Davis, to someone who has reached age 55 but has not achieved 25 years of service?
Well, what the bill would do would replace the 55. The 55 would be gone. They still would have to serve the 25 years. If somebody joined when they were 40 years old, they would have to serve 25 years. And that's not unheard of.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the good senator? Seeing none, thank you for sponsoring this bill, Senator Davis, and thank you for testifying today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Have a nice day.
You as well. Justin, if we could bring Ms. up, there she is. Recognize, so I'll go through my rigmarole. Is there anyone else I don't see anyone else to testify in favor of this legislation, and I don't see anyone to testify in opposition. Is that correct, Justin? I'm going to assume the roles are correct. And with that, we will turn to testifying. Thank you. We'll testifying neither for nor against. And we shall recognize once again, Ms. Moran from MEPers. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you again. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. I am still Kathy Moran, Manager of Actuarial and Legislative Affairs at MainPers. MainPers is neither for nor against LD 1753, and again, we're here to provide you with information. In addition to the state-sponsored plans, MainPers administers a retirement program for participating local districts, also known as PLDs, which includes public entities that have chosen to provide retirement plans to their employees through MainPers. There are approximately 310 such entities that participate in the PLD Consolidated Retirement Plan. Employers in this plan elect, by action of the appropriate governing body, the specific regular and or special plan or plans by which to cover their employees. And each employer and its participating employees pay the retirement plan costs for the elected plan. In general, the more favorable special plans are more expensive than the regular plan, and the state does not provide any funding toward this plan. Our understanding of the intent of LD 1753 is to require PLD employers to offer a special plan to law enforcement officers that permits retirement after 25 years of service at any age. PLD employers may currently elect to provide a retirement benefit that permits exactly that, retirement after 25 years of service at any age, but they are not required to do so. Those decisions are at a local level since the employer and employees must pay the cost of those benefits. Under current law, amendments to retirement benefits statutes that impact participating local district plans do not become part of that plan unless adopted through rulemaking based on the recommendation of the PLD Advisory Committee. The committee is established in statute with its voting membership evenly split between plan employers and employees. If LD 1753 is enacted, it will be presented to the Advisory Committee for their consideration. Again, thank you for your consideration of this testimony. I'd be happy to answer any questions and will be available for your work session.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. Representative Drinkwater, I'm just going to slip in real quick here, take the chair's prerogative, because I think it's a question we all have on our minds here. Ms. Moran, when I had originally read the bill, I read it as an alternate plan for folks who didn't have a plan in their municipality, but Senator Davis indicated that this would replace 55 for this same group. Do we have any idea? I mean, that seems like an enormous group of people that we're about to change the goalpost on.
Are you asking how many? I'm sure I'm not understanding the question. How many PLD law enforcement people there are, or how many who aren't covered by this type of a plan? I'm not sure the question. Sorry.
How many folks are thinking they're retiring at 55, but now will be moved to a 25-year limit? I mean, I'm not even, it's semi-rhetorical because, you know, I would have asked this question beforehand if I thought, am I reading the bill correctly? Are we eliminating 55 and putting in 25 years?
My understanding of the bill, and it's not, I think there's some technical issues with the way that it's drafted in terms of if you look at the entire section of statute, it still allows the employer to elect certain benefits. And the way we would read the bill just as it is that it would be removing the benefit plan that has the 55 requirement and put in a straight 25-year plan, but it still leaves that election in by the employer. My understanding is the intent not to allow the employers to make that election, but to instead require it. So under the current plan, under the consolidated plan, if you would just give me just 1 minute to give you some additional information. Under that plan, there are, in fact, four special plans with a COLA variant or not available for the local districts to elect. One of them is a 20-year and out plan. One's this 25 and year out plan. There's a 25-55, and then there's one with a higher benefit accrual. So there are different plans available to the current local districts, and typically these are issues of bargaining with their groups of employees where they agree on what plan they're going to provide for their employees, and then they know there are costs associated. Again, like with the state special plans, the costs are typically higher both for the employees and for the employers to participate in these plans. I don't know if that is helpful or answers your question or not, Representative Sylvester.
No, that gets me very close, and the chair is going to deny my follow-up in order to move to Representative Drinkwater. Did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You actually asked my question, so I tried to quickly think of another question. So I'm curious of how many PLDs we have participating in Maine Piers. As you know, last year Senator Baldarci brought forth a bill to allow city police to buy back in to Maine Piers. So I'd be curious to how many PLDs participate in Maine Piers. Maybe that's a number we can have for the work session.
Actually, I did provide that in the testimony. There are about 310 local employers that participate in the Maine PERS plan.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Moore? Then I'm going to allow my follow-up, which is, do we have any idea how many municipalities do not participate in the retirement plan, which seemed to be the gist of the testimony?
I mean, we certainly can try to get that information. I don't know how many total municipalities there are in Maine, but we can certainly get that information and do a net count for you and try to give you some idea as to how many participate or don't participate in Maine PERS. I don't think the legislation as enacted, I don't know if that it's the intent or not, would sweep in employees of those non-participating employers. I mean, somebody's got to pay the cost for this. And I know I heard Senator Davis reference some options maybe being discussed at work session on costing it, but the current statutory framework, which obviously can be changed, is the contracts between Maine PERS and the employer who provides benefits to its employees. And so we don't have situations where there are employees and non-participating employers who are able to be in our plan.
Okay, thank you. Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you again for being here, Ms. Moran. Just clarification. So the enactment of this bill, the costs would be borne entirely by the PLDs. Is that correct?
Thank you. Yes, the cost of the cost of the PLD plan is borne by PLD employees and employers. Currently, is the structure of that plan. That's the complete source of the funding in terms of inflow of contributions.
But not the state.
The state does not contribute to this plan.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Moran. We'll see you again in a minute.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing anyone else.
That's correct.
Thank you. Then I will close the public hearing on LD 1753. And we're going to step back. Senator Hickman is here to testify to his bill. So I will open the public hearing on LD 1746, an act to expand the 1988 Special Retirement Plan to include employees who work for the Office of Chief Medical Examiner. And we welcome our own Senate Chair, Craig Hickman. Welcome, sir. You are on mute, sir. That's better. We hear you're having high
time. A little confusing today. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Excellent.
How's the delay today?
Thank you, Chairman Sylvester. My distinguished colleagues on this committee of Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Craig Hickman. I represent Senate District 14, 11 towns in Southern Kennebec County here in the Maine Senate. I Zoom before you today on behalf of the Maine Human to present LD 1746 and act to expand the 1998 Special Retirement Plan to include employees who work for the Office of Chief Medical Examiner. As members of this committee know, the Maine legislature voted to expand the 1998 Special Retirement Plan to include civilian employees who work for the Department of Public Safety, Maine State Police Crime Laboratory, or Computer Crimes Unit in our first regular session last year. While this was a great thing, we inadvertently left out the employees of the Office of Chief Medical Examiner within the Department of the Attorney General that we said we would include in a committee bill. And in the rush of session, that slipped through the cracks, for which I take full responsibility. This bill remedies my mistake by allowing employees of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner to elect to participate in the 1998 Special Retirement Plan of the Maine Public Employees Retirement System. As we know, the workers in the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner have very difficult jobs, to say the least. They are responsible for working with the bodies of victims of sudden, unexpected, and violent deaths, as well as talking with and supporting the grieving families of the victims and collecting reports of all missing people in Maine. When taking into consideration the recent uptick in overdose deaths and child deaths in the state, the employees of the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner are faced with bleak outcomes each and every day. It is for these reasons I believe that these employees deserve to be included in the 1998 Special Retirement Plan in recognition of their dedication and hard work, and so that they are compensated similarly to their counterparts. Thank you for your opportunity to testify today, of course. I will take questions. I think that if we can, this is an emergency piece of legislation, as is most in this session, and if we can move this forward as expeditiously as possible, again, to sort of make up for our error last session, I would greatly appreciate it. And with that, I'll take questions that you may have, and I'm sure that there will be testimony behind me. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Hickman. Are there any questions for the good senator? Seeing none, sir. Looks like you get off easy today. And thank you for, I know you're juggling committees, so we appreciate you coming forward today.
Thank you for chairing and doing a great job. I am definitely listening to both committees. Thank you.
Thank you. And Justin, if you could promote Eric Hyatt and Jeff McCabe, and also bring back Kathy Moore.
Okay.
And Mr. Hyatt, welcome. When you're in, you can turn on your video and sound.
Working on it. Bear with me one second.
Of course.
Good morning. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Eric Hyatt. As was said, I've been employed in the service of the people of the state of Maine for over 20 years. I've been a correctional officer and sergeant. I've been a Maine DOT snow fighter. And for the past 6 years, I've worked as a medical examiner's assistant here at the OCME. Last year, I did testify for you to be added to a similar bill. As Senator Hickman had said, my testimony had moved you to break into emergency session and provided the impetus to create this bill. I'm not going to rehash the same testimony I did last year, but there was questions that were brought up as to whether the entire office was affected in a similar manner as to those of us who work down in the autopsy suite. The answer to that is yes. The Office of Chief Medical Examiner has a team of 12 people, currently 10, serving a state of 1.3 million people and 35,385 square miles. We do have about 20 or so active contracted field medical examiners who help cover the area. But 3,970 deaths were called into the office of 12 people into 2021, 3,970. Now, not all those are exams or autopsies, of course, but each one is a death that has to be documented and handled by our team. Mathematically, that's 331 deaths per person. Excuse me. 390 of those cases came physically into this office. They were handled by the mortuary team of 3. We did 279 autopsies, 110 external exams, and we had one set of animal remains that somebody thought it would be funny to throw into a bag with some medical equipment and leave in somebody's truck. Wasn't that funny? So that leaves us 3,580 other cases, 3,580 stories of the end of someone's life taken over the phone or by email that the team must process physically and mentally. The team gets reports that include all the demographics, the who, what, when, where, why, and how of the death, whether it's natural, due to child or elder abuse, homicides, suicides, accidents, overdoses, or any other possible circumstances. They scheduled 1,440 exams that happened outside the facility. They gathered medical records and request admission blood, if any. They review, examine, and upload all the scene pictures. They review and scan suicide notes. They take the calls from grieving family members who want to know why and how and what and where. And they must process all this while maintaining professionalism, compassion, and their own mental health. The office administrator, the investigators, and the planning and research associates handle all these case issues and the information of the 390 souls as well that came into the facility. We have a team meeting every morning to review the list of names that comes into our office. This is so we can make the best plan to serve the health and welfare of the people of the state of Maine, as it says in our statute. We all hear, see, and feel every death reported to our office. 3,970. I do thank you for listening to me today. Pardon me. If I've moved you in these few minutes, I ask you to keep in mind that this is what the people of this office do every day. I also ask at this time, if you forgive my ignorance of procedures, I would pose a request. There is another bill, LD 1808, that is on the boards to address employee retention, the Maine State Crime Lab and computer crime units at the Department of Public Safety. It is a bill that is to bring it full so that the time requirements, date requirements, their service counts no matter when they were hired. It makes everything equitable for them. So I would ask that we be given the same consideration either in the language of our current bill or be added to LD 1808 or creation of a similar bill. Again, I really thank you for your time, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Hyatt, for coming back to the committee and for your testimony today. Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Hyatt? Seeing none, thank you, sir. With that, I will, Jeff McCabe? There he is. Welcome back, Mr. McCabe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was trying to do a work session and education at the same time, so I apologize for being off camera and trying to juggle. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, members of the Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Jeff McCabe, Director of Legislation and Politics for Maine Service Employees Association. We proudly represent over 13,000 public sector and publicly funded workers here across the state of Maine, including the workers in the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner within the Maine Office of the Attorney General. We're here in strong support of LD 1746. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to read from my testimony because I know the work that this committee does, and I know that you will review my written comments. I did want to take an opportunity, though, to ask the committee to consider allowing Maine PERS, MSCA, and the folks in the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner's Office to craft language as needed before this committee takes a vote. We feel that Maine PERS has been most up to date with providing the most needed language. As you heard from Mr. Hyatt earlier today, there is a real interest to make sure that the language is correct moving forward and that the changes in statute recognize previous service of those state employees. I think it is rather appropriate that moving forward, that those of us bringing these bills forward work with Maine PERS to provide the appropriate statutory language to prevent situations that you've heard about earlier today in creating cliffs, and you'll also hear about in the next bill. So with that, I'm happy to take questions and provide any information I can to the committee moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. McCabe. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Justin, I don't see anybody else to testify in favor or in opposition. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Then we will move to people wanting to testify neither for nor against, and we'll bring back Ms. Moran for the third time. Oh, looks like we lost her for. What we'll do at this moment, while we're waiting for Ms. Moran to come back in, is I notice a couple other committee members have come in, and so we'll do introductions, and I'll start with you, Senator Garrett.
Good morning. I'm Senator Stacey Garrett, representing Southern Penobscot County.
Thank you and welcome, Representative Rader.
Hi, I'm Representative Amy Rader, and I represent District 125, a portion of Bangor.
Excellent. And I see Ms. Moran has reappeared.
I have. Good morning again. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Kathy Moran. I'm the Manager of Actuarial Affairs at Maine PERS. Again, Maine PERS is neither for nor against LD 1746, and we're here to provide you with information that we hope you find helpful. I'm not going to repeat all of my testimony because it, again, explains the differences of the plan, so I'll focus just on the Chief Medical Examiner Officer aspect of it. Employees in this office are covered by the regular plan currently, and LD 1746 would move those employees into the 1998 special plan. This bill as drafted would move those employees into the plan prospectively from July 1, 22 forward, and service earned prior to the date would remain under the regular plan and have the split reduction as we talked about earlier on a prior bill. We do have a concern about the way LD 1746 is drafted. Specifically, the bill as proposed permits impacted employees to elect whether to move into the new plan. Since I worked with the committee last session, Maine PERS has become aware that these plan coverage elections in a qualified plan are not permitted by the Internal Revenue Service. Therefore, Maine PERS would recommend that in order to avoid a plan compliance issue, the bill be amended to move all employees in the covered positions into the new plan. We would also note that LD 70 in the emergency preamble of LD 1746, it indicates that the impacted employees were inadvertently omitted from Public Law 2021, Chapter 474, which added employees in the Maine State Crime Laboratory and Computer Crimes Unit to the special plan on a prospective basis. There's a separate bill, which you will hear today, LD 1808, which would provide retroactive special plan coverage for those employees. If that bill is advanced and the committee's intent is to provide parity between these two groups of employees, it may want to consider whether to amend LD 1746 to also provide that retroactive plan coverage. As drafted, this bill will have a fiscal impact because the ongoing employer normal cost for the members covered in the special plan is higher than the regular plan normal cost. If the bill is amended to provide retroactive plan coverage, there would also be an increase in liabilities that would require immediate funding in compliance with the state constitution. And we'll be happy to work with the department and the MSEA and the Office of Fiscal and Program Review to identify the employees that would be impacted by this proposal and to provide you with an estimated cost of making either the prospective or retroactive change. Again, thank you for your consideration of this testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions and be available at your work session.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're saying that the IRS has identified this as a special plan, and so you're recommending that all employees. When you say all employees, I would assume that clerical staff would not be included under the special plan. Is that your understanding?
So I think there's two questions there. The first, on the IRS issue, it's not the special plan issue that matter. It's the IRS frowns upon allowing employees who are in positions to make elections that change their status while they're in that position. So from moving from one plan to another, for example, which has impacts potentially on contributions and deferrals and that sort of thing. So the IRS really is weighing in on allowing the election versus moving the group into the employees, a group of employees into the plan, which is why we would suggest that whatever group you define, whether it be, I think your prior, Mr. Hyatt referenced 12 individuals. Whether you move all 12 or some subset of the group, our recommendation would be that they be moved into the plan and that they not be given individual choices, elections as to whether to move or not to move, which is what's happened in the past with some groups. So the question you ask about clerical employees is really a policy discussion for all of you to decide as to what population of those 12 or whatever that number is should move into the special plan or should not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've received a lot of requests for people being moved to the special plan over the last few years. I'm wondering, do we have anywhere a tabulation of how many people we've done that to and even what the costs have been to the state, to Maine PERS? Is that available with some research?
That's something we could certainly put together for you. It does go back to literally 1998 when this plan was created, and certain groups were added. And over the course of the years since then, different groups have been put into the plan in various ways. A lot on many of those groups have been added prospectively, and some of those groups have been added retroactively. But we can put gather some information for you on that.
Okay. And Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yes, a follow-up, please, or another question, actually. So the way this particular bill is crafted, it is prospective only, not retroactive, but is a possibility looking ahead that for all intents and purposes, this may be made retroactive. Am I reading that correctly?
The bill as drafted is a prospective application of the bill, and the issue that we point out, and I think again, Mr. Hyatt also pointed out the same issue as did I think Mr. McCabe, that this again creates one of those cliff situations where you have people who have service in the two different plans. Again, you're looking at the crime lab people, and I think you're in your next bill or in a bill today, who were added prospectively just last session, who are looking for the retrospective treatment. And so this, as drafted, this bill is a prospective only bill. It could, of course, be amended or could be changed in the future to provide that retroactive application.
Senator Miramont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So you have to pay attention because you need to get us all these numbers. So the opening testimony by the sponsor was that we made an error. We had made an agreement with some people and then they were left out when we followed through on the bill. And we were just doing this to fix what we'd already agreed to add to a previous bill, which makes me think that this is something we've agreed upon, something we've discussed, and we would move right into work session and fix it. Then I've heard something about now needing some different language. Now I'm not quite clear how many people it's covering and how did it evolve from being, let's just do what we promised to do, to this, or am I misunderstanding what's going on?
Do you want me to speak to that, Chair?
As much as you can, and then I'd like someone else, if you don't have it, to finish, please. Thank you.
The bill that was heard last session dealt with the crime lab individuals. There was, I believe, testimony at that time, and maybe Steve or somebody can help provide that historical information. There was information provided about this particular office, and there was discussion about that. There was not language that I'm aware of, at least, that would bring this group in, and I can't speak to why that did or did not happen. I think I'll just stop there, and maybe others who were involved with this discussion last year can weigh in on that.
Are you all set, Senator Miramont?
It doesn't feel completely answered, but if no one else has an answer, that's the extent of Ms. Moran's. So I guess that's what I get. So whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Chair,
are there any?
Chair Sylvester, I have Mr. Hyatt who can speak to the clerical staff question.
Yep, and I just told him that if he could give us that question, that information to Mr. Langland in writing, that for the work session, that would be great. We don't bring people back to answer questions. And I'll just remind folks who are sitting out in the gallery there that the chat is just for technical questions, that it's not for commentary on ongoing testimony. So if Mr. High, if you could make sure that information gets over to Mr. Langland for the work session, he will make sure that we get that information. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Ms. Moore? Seeing none, I don't see anyone else waiting to testify.
That is correct.
All right, very good. Then I will close the public hearing on LD 1746 and open the public hearing on LD 1808. And that is an act to address employee retention at the Maine State Police Crime Laboratory and the Computer Crimes Unit in the Department of Public Safety. And I believe we have Senator Diamond as the sponsor.
I believe I have promoted Senator Diamond.
Perfect. Welcome, Senator.
Good morning. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and members of the Committee on Labor and Housing. I'm Senator Bill Diamond, and I'm here to present LD 1808. As you just heard, an act to address the employee retention at the Maine State Police Crime Lab and Computer Crimes Unit in the Department of Public Safety. I'm also here to say that, confess that I made a mistake. Last session, I presented LD 1101, an act to expand the 1998 Special Retirement Plan to include civilian employees who work for those two units. My intention at the time, and I think at least some of the legislators at the time who passed this, along with this committee, my intention was to include everybody, not just those employees who are hired after September 30th of 21. So that was my mistake, and I'm here with this bill to correct that. Again, this committee and the full legislature did pass this bill, 1101, that would allow these civilian employees to have the same type of retirement plan as others they work beside. This is, I can tell you that I'm fully aware of what the crime lab employees do, but I'm even more involved with the computer crime unit. And I can tell you that they really, they do a very unusual job. As you've heard in previous testimony this morning, that's the case across the board. But I also want to say that having worked with the computer crime unit as a legislator, having been on site to their investigations, to being in their office over in Vassalboro on several occasions, I can tell you what they do is above and beyond what any of us would even consider to do. Their job is to find predators, people who prey on children, who make, create, produce child pornography. Their job is to rescue kids whenever they can, and they've done that on obviously many, many occasions. But in order to do all that, they have to look at hundreds, maybe thousands of hours trying to find clues on where these perpetrators may be. They do an extraordinary job, but you can imagine, and I know some of these people, depending on the point of the investigation, would have to work not 8 hours, not 10, not 12, but sometimes well into a 24-hour period. And I've seen that in the past. And I can't say enough of what they have to look at. They have to actually view a child being sexually assaulted so that they can get whatever clues from those videos, from those still pictures. And that does take its toll. And it's probably as an egregious experience that you have to do, they have to do day in and day out. And I think the crime lab employees have to experience similar types of experiences. I just have to say that I think it's only fair that these employees be treated as some who they work beside. And I think, again, that was my intention when I put the bill in. And I take responsibility for the wording not being appropriately placed that would accomplish that. So very brief testimony, Mr. Chair. I think that I hope you'll consider this again. I know the committee, as I say, has endorsed this whole idea, knowing again what these people have to do day in and day out. And I thank you for the time to present this bill, this correction, and I look forward to the work session and providing any information and answering any questions you may have today.
Thank you, Senator Diamond. Senator Mirmont.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Senator.
Hi, Senator.
Nice to see you. So we have several of these types of bills, and it seems to come down to if there's an extraordinarily, or sometimes not that extraordinarily stressful, but stressful situation for their work, then there should be some special retirement to account for it. That's one part of the argument. The other is that I've heard you present just now is that when people work beside people who have different retirement plans, we should start considering that for them. And I'm a little leery about that particular part. The other part we have accepted and we try to honor within the extent of the money we have. But this one would be a little tough because every day, a lot of our different jobs work beside people who have very different retirement or none at all and no medical and all that sort of stuff. So right now it might be, why don't we give it a little better because people we work with get better, but that could be reversed and say, well, these people get nothing. Why are we giving so much? So I think we maybe better stick to the stress of the job and why it might need a special environment. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think that the reason sworn people have been given this type of retirement in the past is because there's an acknowledgement of what they do. I think there's been an oversight over the years, so I wouldn't argue with that piece at all. And I think that's been substantiated, and that's there. I think the oversight has been the people who are not sworn, who do again similar work. In fact, some of the cases in the non-sworn people, they provide a lot of the evidence to initiate an on-site investigation. So they're really doing, sometimes they're doing much more of the intense work, intentional visions of what they have to come up with for evidence. So I hear what you're saying. I think the sworn people are already been totally legitimized in what their situation is. I just think there's been an oversight here. Now, most people don't realize what goes on in that computer crime unit, for example. They have, and I would, if you haven't had a chance, I would really encourage you to go over there and take a look at it because it'll keep you up at night. Some of the things that you'll learn by making that visitation. So I think this is just an oversight on one half because the other half is so obvious that they should have. The sworn people were so obviously in a situation, retirement, that they deserved and they should have. I just think these folks have been left out.
Are there any other questions for the good senator? Senator, I have a couple. Your bill in the 129th included both groups. Is that correct?
You mean the crime lab and the computer crime unit?
Yes.
That's correct.
So then I will apologize as well because I misread it to think that we were looking at the same language as the 129th. I think probably as you did. To include both groups. And my second question to you is what is the status of that bill in terms of appropriations? The first part of that, this one, folks.
The 1101?
Yeah.
I would ask Jeff McCabe to maybe reinforce what I'm saying, but I think that was passed. I think it became law, and therefore it would have gone through the process of funding.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted the committee to know that. I didn't want to speak without. Yeah. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions up? Senator Hickman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Diamond, for your commitment and dedication to those that you are always fighting for. I wonder when you noticed that you had erred. And I asked that because, of course, I didn't follow protocol and didn't want to engage in the bill that I presented. But we find our errors when we find them. And I wondered when you noticed your error, and was this the only way to address it, was to put in a new bill, or could you have caught it before it was voted out of the Appropriations Committee last session?
No, I didn't hear about it till last summer, and it was brought to me. I think one of the employees actually picked up on it and brought it to the attention of I think of Jeff McCabe, and he brought it to my attention. I also received some emails from some of the employees. So it was like after the fact. Hence, we had to have some legislation to correct that mistake.
And thank you. And you heard the earlier testimony from Mr. Hyde. I assume maybe you did not. He wanted to make sure that if we were to go forward with the bill that includes his staff, that we do something very similar to this bill. Not to put you on the spot, but even if we don't amend your bill for that reason, is that something that sounds reasonable and fair to you?
I would say yes, and however, saying that I'm really not that familiar with what they do, but I heard his testimony. It sounded very appropriate, but I'm a novice when it comes to the background and information regarding what they all take into. But I would have, it sounds to me like it's something the committee is going to have to decide, and I certainly wouldn't oppose that.
Thank you once again. Thank you, Chair Sylvester.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Senator Diamond, for sponsoring this bill.
Chair Sylvester?
Oh, yes.
Sorry, I do have Benjamin Collins looking to speak on this.
Okay,
if that's
great.
something you're open to, I just want to share it.
Yes, indeed. I believe he's a co-sponsor. So we will say goodbye to the good senator. And you're welcome to stay if you want to hear the rest of the testimony. And if you would promote Representative Collins, that would be fantastic.
Should be coming through.
Hello.
Welcome, Representative. The floor is yours, sir.
Good morning, Chairman Sylvester, Chairman Hickman, distinguished members of the Labor and Housing Committee. I'm Representative Benjamin Collins. I represent House District 42 in the city of Portland. I will be very brief. As a co-sponsor, I just wanted to lend my support for finding a fix to this legislation sponsored by Senator Diamond. As you all are aware of now, this is a policy you all heavily supported. The whole legislature heavily supported this. Unfortunately, there was an unintended mistake, but I believe an error doesn't become a mistake unless you don't fix it. So I think we have that chance here. And I believe the intent is to just make sure that those staff members that we're discussing today that brought this bill forward actually get included in the bill that they were intended to be included in. Unwittingly, somehow they were left out. New employees in this division would reap these benefits, where the people that have been doing this work on behalf of the state of Maine for many years, doing a very tough job that you all were educated about last session. They somehow are left out. So today I would ask that we work together to fix that. I believe you have the ability to do so, whatever route you choose. Just make sure that it applies retroactively, not just to new employees. I think it's that simple. I know that some people impacted here just really want to make sure that it's fixed, and that I've heard of some deadlines that they had to change their paperwork about retirements or pensions by the end of last year. Whatever the case may be, I just want to make sure that the legislation that is could be enacted this year is going to fix whatever wasn't fixed last year, and that they're going to get what we all intended for them to get. We just need to carry the intent out. It's that simple. I have full faith that this committee can do that very expeditiously and take care of any issues that are pending, and let these people get some peace that they're taken care of, and that they can go back serving the state, doing this most difficult job, which I know we're all very grateful for. So, and finally, I'll just say is that I believe that whatever the final language is that they just need to have, I think, the ability to get the retirement that was intended in the legislation from last year, whether they have the 25 years of service or after 10 years of service, if they reach 55 years of age, specifically in light of the great burden that this job puts upon them. And again, very grateful for their service to the state. In these tough times, it's hard to keep state employees in any position, and specifically like positions like this. I think that the conversation today is how to get people where they should be, but I hope in the future we could talk about even doing more to support these incredible servants to our state. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Collins. Are there any questions from the committee for the good representative? Seeing none, thank you for being here today, sir. See you soon. Justin, if we could promote Brandy Karen, Jeff McCabe, and then bring Ms. Moran back in. And these will be folks testifying in favor of the legislation, with Ms. Moran being neither for nor against. And that's who I see on the list right now.
They all should be coming through.
Perfect. Ms. Karen, you're going to go first. So if you could turn on your camera and mic when you come in. Perfect. Welcome. Hi, Ms. Karen. Yes, you have the floor. Welcome today.
Thank you. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, members of the Committee on Labor and Housing. I appreciate the opportunity to address this committee today. My name is Brandy Karen. I'm employed by the Maine State Police Crime Laboratory as a forensic DNA analyst, and I'm here on my own time. Essentially, we're hoping to address the amendment or amend some concerns with the previously passed retirement bill. Early last fall, when we met with members of the union and Maine PERS to discuss the newly passed bill, we were shocked to realize that for many of us with 10 or more years of service, opting into the early retirement program would penalize or negatively impact us financially. We would automatically become part of a split plan, and this would mean potentially a 42% or 60% penalty to our retirement benefit. When this endeavor was initially proposed, it was our intent to obtain the same 25-year retirement that our sworn counterparts had. They have a straight 25-year retirement or age 55 with at least 10 years of service. We are the first generation of forensic scientists and analysts to do these jobs. Our jobs were originally filled by law enforcement officers who were assigned to the crime laboratory and already had a 20-year or 25-year retirement plan. In 1984, the state of Maine hired its first civilian scientist, and over the course of the last 38 years, numerous other scientists have been hired and trained, but only one civilian scientist has retired with the appropriate number of years of service and age requirement. Most civilians leave within 5 to 15 years of service. We have a revolving door of employees who pass the background checks, the polygraph tests, and the rigorous training, which requires other trained scientists to set casework aside in order to train new employees who end up leaving all too soon. The primary purpose driving this early retirement endeavor is to limit the amount of time that we're exposed to the vicarious traumas that we endure through the course of our work. 10 years seems to be a common breaking point. So many of our good scientists have left right around that time, and there's no doubt in my mind that a 25-year goal would have kept them and their valuable experience at the lab. Some people can take more than others, and I can speak for myself where I've had several occasions over the last 20 years where I didn't think I could sit through another homicide meeting or see another dead child. I've had times where I can't even bear to watch the evening news. I've thought of leaving many times, but I keep on going because there are victims out there who need us. It's depleting. Leaving before my time is up would feel like I didn't finish my job. It would feel like I failed. A straight 25-year retirement like our sworn counterparts gives our civilian scientists a goal to work towards. It's a sense of accomplishment and a sense of completion for the difficult, emotionally challenging, and stressful work that we do. It's a definitive mark of achievement and a means of compensation for the traumas that we will forever carry with us. These cases don't go away, and even after leaving employment, we're called back to testify and meet on unsolved cases or appeals. I ask that we make this right and that a straight 25-year retirement or age 55 with 10 or more years of service retirement benefit be granted to the dedicated members of the crime lab and computer crimes units. Thank you, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Karen. Are there any questions from the committee for Ms. Karen? I have a quick one, Ms. Karen. In previous testimony, many of your colleagues come to work in the crime lab right out of college or at a very young age. And so would mean making it into their 60s might mean 30 years of service or more. Am I correct in recalling that?
That's correct. I started working at the lab when I was 23 years old. I just turned 23. And if I retire at 62, that would be basically a 42-year career.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Ms. Karen? Seeing none, thank you so much for your testimony here today. I know, and we appreciate you coming in on your time to do that and all of the work that you do.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And I will bring forward Jeff McCabe. Welcome back.
Good morning, Chair Sylvester, Chair Hickman, members of the Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Jeff McCabe, Director of Legislation and Politics for Maine Service Employees Association. We proudly represent the folks at the Maine State Police Crime Lab, as well as the Computer Crime Lab, both of which fall under the jurisdiction of the Maine Department of Public Safety. We are here today in strong support of the bill before you. And I, again, am going to stray from my written remarks. You have those remarks. I've listened to some of the conversation today, this morning, and we'll get into some of the questions that have come up. But I did want to say, and I imagine many of you probably feel similar in the sense that I truly feel awful that these folks are here again to explain the work that they do, and have to go through this process of just sort of reliving something that I think they felt was addressed in past legislation. I appreciate the bill sponsor for bringing this bill forward. Some of the hardest conversations I've ever had in this current position, or I would say probably in my last 10 years of doing this type of work, really were around sitting through meetings with Maine PERS and the folks at both of these work sites, just explaining how they would be stuck between two retirements and that they would have to continue to work. And as the good chair spoke earlier, working 20 or 30 years. And in some cases, some of these folks will probably have to work in these positions closer to 40 years before they're eligible for retirement. So as I said, I did stray from my written remarks, and I just want to make it clear to the committee that working with Maine PERS, I think it's important that this amendment address the retroactivity piece and cover all these employees from their original date of hire within these work sites to cover and credit the service that they've done on behalf of the state of Maine. And that also covers all of the employees in these work sites, which is so vital. And I think you heard from the last presenter just the importance of going with a straight 25 retirement, regardless of age, and that would just mirror what they are doing with their coworkers. And I did hear the good Senator Miramont ask questions in regards to people who might work sort of side by side. And I think it's really important, and you just heard the last presenter describe the type of work that's done and the change that occurred from hiring folks that were sworn law enforcement officers to hiring civilians. And the work has remained the same, and the retirement should reflect that. So those are just a few of the things that I did hear come up. And I did want to also let folks know, in regards to the stresses and the health concerns associated with this type of work, we will provide the committee with some scientific data, some research to back up the need for these changes as well. And we'll make that available between now and the work session. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCabe. Chair Hickman has a question.
I can defer to Representative Bradstreet. I think he beat me to it. It's okay.
Very gracious of you, sir. Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Hickman, for deferring. In a lot of the bills that we have regarding retirement, we keep hearing these people were inadvertently left out in the previous bill. And, we're hearing that again here. I'm just wondering what type of process can the state use to make sure that we, when we do this thing these things in the future, we don't inadvertently leave some people out who were intended to be in the plans. That's all. I guess it's just, if you have any ideas on that, I'd certainly appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Bradstreet. You know, I think for me in my current position and the folks I work with, I think it's really clear for us going forward that we want to make sure that that retroactivity piece and any changes is addressed and very clear to the Committee of Jurisdiction. Typically, these bills will continue to come to the Labor Committee. I also think we will make a point to make it much clearer to the Appropriations Committee about the need for the retroactivity piece. And I think that we are committed, as you know, Maine PERS has stated that, you know, working on the appropriate statutory language is sort of key. I will say, you know, I think last session or last year, I should say, during the same session, you know, the committee's willingness to pass this bill quickly was both much appreciated, but also I think that maybe some time to sort of digest this language and allow the folks who are affected by the bill to actually review that language may have been extremely helpful in this situation. And then going forward, I think it might be helpful for us and other bargaining agents, as well as committee members and those folks bringing the bill forward, to spend a little bit of time reviewing language as well. And I would offer that. And I would offer, in this role, we would just be the facilitators. It's really Maine PERS, the state identifying those folks in the work site. And then I know there are folks in both Computer Crime Lab and the Crime Lab that are willing to review that language. You know, that's something that they offered. They suggested that I recommend that to the committee here today to do that. I think that aspect is much easier for them than coming in and reliving them providing testimony today. And so, yeah.
Thank you, Chair Hickman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think that this comment/question dovetails directly from Representative Bradstreet's question, and also tries to elucidate for Senator Miramont just what happened last session. So, Mr. McCabe, I think if you remember, what I remember is that when we were working on this bill, 1101, and talking about including the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner employees, it wasn't that we were going to necessarily include them in that bill, but we were going to report out a committee bill that we worked on with advocates, Maine PERS, and our analysts, and we just didn't get to that. Do you remember it that way?
I do, Senator, and I appreciate that clarity. And I do want to thank you for putting that bill in and carrying that issue forward this year. You know, it was something that we sort of waited to see if it would come back up during session, and it just didn't necessarily happen. And these are trying times. You know, this is not the ideal way to legislate. I much prefer to, you know, have dialogue and banter, and to be pulling together small groups in the conference room outside of your committee room, and you know, sitting in the audience so that I can answer these questions and catch up with, you know, folks like Representative Bradstreet and others. And so, you know, this is hard to legislate as we're doing it now. And I think, you know, sometimes unintended consequences happen.
And it is all about the language. And I think that, you know, even the bill that I presented today, I had to submit on time. And the language in that bill may not be exactly what it needs to be to solve the problem that we are trying to solve, you know, one session later. And so I just wanted to say into the record, and for Senator Miramont's benefit, that the language of my bill has to be vetted by Maine PERS more thoroughly to make sure that we're doing what we intended to do last year. So it wasn't as if we need to amend the bill to add something that we didn't agree on. We really just agreed to report out a bill that would take care of those employees, and we did not do that. And so the language in my bill absolutely should be vetted by the stakeholders, the employees, and Maine PERS, as well as this bill, to make sure that when we move it forward, to address Representative Bradstreet's question, that we just have all the dots the I's dotted and the T's crossed. And so that there's not a need to continue to repeat people who got lost in some way because we didn't get the language right. So would you agree with that, Mr. McCabe?
Thank you, Chair Hickman, for the question. And yeah, I would agree with that. And I would say, also I struggle a little bit, and I feel like I should apologize to both the revisor's office as well as the committee analyst who try to create this language with us just to get these bills in. And really you heard from Maine PERS today with the need going forward to change all of these bills to reflect recommendations that have been given to them by IRS. Those are real issues, and those are things. And I heard probably a week ago Representative Cuddy ask questions of Maine PERS, and I was sitting there sort of nodding my head, and we also have a role in that process as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will say that, for Mr. Langland, for the work session for Ms. Moran, who's coming up, these are issues that, in terms of being able to get lists of employees, that I've been working with since the 128th, and, can think of a number of bills that had to be carried over or extended, or, because we couldn't come up with simple lists of employees, as if we're working off of Commodore 128s and written stone tablets. And so I think that that's certainly something to look at in terms of what if there is budget that is needed in order to, so that we can track down who works for the state, what their jobs are, when they were hired, and there's a sort function of some sort. So because it seems to take an enormous amount of manual labor in order to come up with these lists, and we're always appreciative of Maine PERS of doing that work. As well as the work that's able to be done with the MSCA. But if there's a data problem, we should probably fix that. The chair ranted. And so thank you. If there are no more questions for Mr. McCabe, we shall move. Seeing nobody listed to testify against, we shall move to neither for nor against and bring Ms. Moran back in. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Sylvester. Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Kathy Moran. I'm the Manager of Actuarial and Legislative Affairs for Maine PERS. Maine PERS is neither for nor against LD 1808. And again, we're here to provide you information and offer you assistance. Again, I'm not going to repeat my prior testimony about how regular and special plans work. Instead, we'll focus on this particular group that's covered by 1808. As you've discussed, Public Law 2021, Chapter 474 added the Crime Laboratory and Computer Crimes Unit employees to the 1998 Special Plan effective October 1, 2021. Because they were added on a prospective basis in that bill, benefits subject to the split age reduction that we've been talking about. LD 1808 would make the change retroactive, and all service in a covered position, whenever earned, would be considered as being earned in the 1998 Special Plan, and therefore no longer subject to the split age reduction. Again, the result for many impacted members would be the ability to retire at a younger age with an increased retirement benefit. This bill would have a fiscal impact in that it would require immediate funding of the increased liabilities created by permitting past service of the covered employees to be included in the special plan in compliance with the state constitution. This bill would also increase the ongoing employer costs for the members who will be covered in the more favorable special plan. Again, with the other bills, we were happy to work with the department and OFPR in obtaining the information needed to provide the costs associated with amending the plan for this group of people. We would note that LD 1808 is not drafted in a manner that similar plan changes have been enacted into law. Specifically, LD 1808 is drafted as unallocated language, whereas typically, because of the complexity of the statutes that govern the 1998 Special Plan, changes such as those considered in this bill are drafted into the plan as found in Title V at 17851A. Additionally, as enacted, Chapter 474 permitted eligible employees to elect whether to move into the special plan. LD 1808 essentially eliminates the need for that election, and the relevant language should be stricken from current law. We're happy to work with the committee's analyst on language to address these issues. Again, thank you for your consideration of this testimony, and I'm happy to answer questions that will be available at your work session.
Thank you, Ms. Moran. And I'd want to make sure you knew it was a rant on your behalf.
Oh, thank you.
To make sure that you have what you need to be able to do your work.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
Yes. Representative Gear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you as always, Ms. Moran, for your insight and expertise. Something you just said caught my ear, when you said that the changes usually happen in the Title V, in statute in Title V. I'm just wondering if it is possible to put into some sort of rulemaking or some sort of process, a step-by-step approach to drafting these kinds of changes that would, follow the best practices, changing the statute or whatever would be required there, so that we could actually say, hey, this has come up and here's a process to follow consistently, so we cover all the bases. Is that possible in your mind?
I think it's possible. I think it's a question of who does that kind of work. I mean, the Reviser's office is typically responsible for drafting legislation. We work with the Reviser's office on many, many bills. We did not work with the Reviser's office on this bill. It may be helpful if maybe we're included maybe at a different stage in the drafting on some of these bills. Some people reach out directly to us, some do not. I know there's a timing issue when it comes to cloture, and sometimes you just got to get the language in there and then we'll flesh it out. And I think this dialogue that we're having and you're all having today is really critical to doing that, and so that we are understanding exactly what your intent is in these bills, so that we can, from our perspective at least, provide our views and insights as to whether the language will accomplish what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So I think you're talking about some kind of a process document that describes kind of the steps to take, and I think I have that in my head, of course, because I do this, but I'm not drafting most of these bills. I think the Reviser's office, and maybe I'm not sure to the extent your analysts involved, but I think there's a common denominator here in terms of who sees every one of these bills ahead of them coming out, and it may be something that we may want to discuss with the Reviser's office as to whether there's something that can happen at that stage to help ensure these bills come out in the way that address all of these issues.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Moran? Seeing none and seeing no one else listed to testify, I would close the public hearing on LD 1808, and I would poll the committee whether or not we need 5 minutes or we should plunge right into the next bill.
Personally, I'm ready to dive.
So I don't see anyone begging for 5 minutes. And so I would open the public hearing on LD 1823, sponsored by Representative Millette, but will be presented by our own Representative Gear. And that is an act to amend the enforcement provisions of the law governing earned paid leave. And whenever you are ready, Representative Gear, assuming that Representative Millette is not here today because of family issues.
Yes, I will be. I'm here on behalf of Representative Millette. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and esteemed colleagues on the Committee on Labor and Housing. My name is Rebecca Millette, and I represent House District 30, which is most of Cape Elizabeth. I am presenting for your consideration LD 1823, an act to amend the enforcement provisions of the law governing earned paid leave. In the 129th legislature, I was the sponsor of LD 369, an act to support healthy workplaces and healthy families by providing earned paid sick leave to certain employees. The bill was heavily amended, passed by the legislature, and signed into law by Governor Mills. I understand disagreements have arisen regarding enforcement of the new law, specifically in situations where employees are covered by collective bargaining agreements. Others will come after me today to explain more about these disagreements. My goal is to avoid unnecessary litigation. I have heard from representatives of the Maine Education Association that they fear without a small change to the current law, litigation is likely inevitable. I hope the resources dedicated to public schools are used to support students and improve public education, not spent on attorneys to litigate laws we passed. I am hopeful passing LD 1823 will avoid unnecessary legal expenses and save our schools money. LD 1823 is one small edit to the current law that will provide clarity to those in the field about the new earned paid leave law and its impact on employees covered by a union contract. I feel it is important we pass this bill this session. I've had discussions with the Department of Labor and would like to propose an amendment to the bill. The department had concerns about the original version of the bill, but they have met with the Maine Education Association and other labor organizations, and they have worked collaboratively on clarifying language. And I would propose the language of the bill be struck and instead replaced with the following. Under item 7, enforcement. The Bureau has the exclusive authority pursuant to Section 42 to enforce this section, except that nothing in this section shall prohibit the parties to a collective bargaining agreement from agreeing to also address violations of this section through the parties' contractual dispute resolution processes. The Department of Labor staff and representatives of the Maine Education Association believe this change will clarify the new law without further confusion or legal challenges. Thank you for your time and your consideration. I will do my best to answer any questions, although I will not, and although they may be best suited for those coming after. So yeah, I will say just here on Representative Millett's behalf, I will defer any questions to the folks coming after me. And thank you for your time, everybody.
Thank you, Representative Geer, for providing that testimony. Are there any questions for Representative Geer? Seeing none. Thank you, Representative. And if we could bring Mr. Kaczynski forward.
Coming through.
Thank you, Justin. Welcome, Mr. Kaczynski.
Hello, Senator Hickman, Representative Sylvester, and other esteemed members of the Labor and Housing Committee. My name is John Kaczynski. I'm here on behalf of the Maine Education Association to testify in support of LD 1823. The MEA represents 24,000 educators throughout the entire state of Maine in nearly every school district in the state. This bill is a clarification of existing law that can help avoid unnecessary litigation. While we represent an overwhelming majority of educators in the state, vast majority of school districts in the state are represented by the same law firm, and they have raised the concerns about the new earned paid leave law that was passed during the 129th legislative session, Title 26 MRSA Section 637. They have argued consistently across the state that the way the current law is written provides the Department of Labor the exclusive authority to enforce the new law, and disputes cannot be resolved through the grievance process or dispute resolution processes in local contracts. While the MEA disagrees with this interpretation, without greater clarity in the earned paid leave statute, we worry the new law will be subject to litigation, thus diverting resources away from students to lawyers paid to litigate such matters. What's more, we feel without clarification in the enforcement section of the law, both labor unions and administrators will spend years and significant resources to litigate where we need to litigate. Before we even get to the merits of any potential claim, we'll be faced with litigating who has the authority to decide. But LD 1823 can prevent all that by making one simple change. It essentially allows local associations and their school administrators and school boards to agree that they can resolve these issues locally through their own contract process. This amendment simply clarifies that, and we think it makes good sense. The MEA believes the grievance process can and should be an avenue to resolve any issues or disputes. We believe allowing the local association and administrators to utilize the local dispute resolution systems in place via their union contracts will lead to faster resolutions. For these reasons, we support LD 1823 as amended. We hope the committee will vote all to pass. Thank you for your time and your consideration, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Kaczynski. Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Kaczynski? Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kaminsky, good to see you. Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year, Representative Drinkwater.
As you know, the first session of the 130th, we dealt with the binding arbitration bill, and I've heard from a lot of superintendents that are concerned that this bill, 1823, is mirroring the previous bill, which was 677, and subjecting local schools to binding arbitration. Can you explain to me what the difference between this bill is and the previous bill, which was LD 677? Which was binding arbitration?
Yes, sir. I think there must be some confusion. There's no correlation or connection between binding arbitration and the bill before you. The bill before you is simply a clarification on the earned paid leave law. As I said in my testimony, the school attorneys are arguing that the Bureau has the exclusive authority to enforce the earned paid leave provisions in statute. And all the amendment before you will do is simply allow local associations and administrators to agree that they can use their own dispute resolution process for any disputes related to the earned paid leave law, rather than relying on the Department of Labor. So I think I see no connection to LD 677 and the binding arbitration bill that was discussed last year. And instead, this is simply a clarification, really to avoid litigation and the need to even litigate before we litigate about who has the ability to enforce this.
Thank you, sir. If I may follow up, Mr. Chair, with a quick question.
Yes, you may.
Having served on a school board, obviously we have a contract with the teachers union. It's a local contract, as you're pointing out. And I know that you folks do offer a lot of assistance in drawing up these contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Could you provide us, maybe obviously for the workshop, a contract that shows how a local union and school administrative district works out their differences and what it says in a local contract as recommended by the MEA?
I'm happy to do that. Obviously, these are going to be different all over the state, but that's why we're asking for this bill to pass, sir. We feel like in a lot of places, when we have disputes, we can solve these issues locally with a simple step one, which is often taking the issue to the building administrator. That often deals with the issue right there. And then there'll be a step two process involving oftentimes the superintendent, a step three, which involves the school board. The number of grievances that make it that far is very low. And then if they're unable to find resolution, often a contract will have binding arbitration of a decision or arbitration of a decision if there's a dispute at hand. So if and it's important to note, Representative Drinkwater, again, that's a contract that the school board has agreed to. So all we're doing here with this bill is saying, should they have the ability, the school board and the association, to agree to use whatever dispute resolution process is in their contract to solve these problems rather than relying on the Department of Labor.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Bradstreet, if it's okay with you, I'm going to ask a clarifying question on that because I think it just is a simpler way maybe to cut through some of that. When in our wisdom, Mr. Kaczynski, the legislature passes a bill that affects something like leave, as we did in family medical leave, then most contracts have in them a clause that says that when we do something that affects your terms of employment, that both sides have the ability to negotiate the impact of that. It's called impact bargaining. And so in trying to figure out how this would be enforced, we got in the way of that is sort of what I'm seeing. And this bill would allow for both sides to impact bargain, the municipalities and the union, on how this law affects them, how they want to deal with it, what the procedures would be and all of that sort of thing. Because we, in trying to figure out who would enforce it, wrote language, which will be shocking to the committee, that sort of got in the way of that. Is that correct?
That is correct. I think, and your point is a good one, Representative Sylvester. If you actually look at the family medical leave provisions of law, they have a similar carve out here for collective bargaining agreements. All this bill will do is allow local associations and school boards to agree to resolve the dispute through the dispute resolution process in their contracts. That's how we read it.
Okay, thank you. Representative Bradstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good to see you, Mr. Kaczynski. Thank
Hi,
you.
Representative Bradstreet.
Yeah, I'm wondering, since the law was enacted, if maybe there has been a conflict in a particular school situation, if you can maybe walk us through what the issues are and what the dispute is or would be, so we maybe have a better idea in the real world what's going on rather than in the theoretical world. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to talk about that, Representative Bradstreet, and good to see you, sir. Happy New Year to you. And I will say overwhelmingly, there's been very few disputes about the new earned paid leave law. I've gotten just a couple reports over the past couple of days, one from out in RSU 13, where they, in their negotiations, they moved their 3 personal days became earned paid leave days. And then they moved 2 sick days to make that the 5 that are required by law. That's what they did there. They did something I heard from a teacher this weekend in SAD 6 in Buxton Hollis. Overwhelmingly, the implementation of earned paid leave in our school districts has gone very smoothly. And I can't point to any places where we have had any kind of disputes about this, except the issue before you now on enforcement. And it's specifically the only issue that I know of that has arisen is regarding who has the ability to enforce this. And as I said, attorneys for the school districts have said, we can't agree to use our dispute resolution process to solve these issues because the language says the Department of Labor has the exclusive authority. So even if we both want to agree to use the local grievance process, we can't because the current language of the earned paid leave law. Beyond that, sir, I haven't heard of controversies in local districts around the state regarding the application of the earned paid leave provisions that were passed in the 129th. I can ask around again, or if you have specific examples, I can do some digging as well. But I haven't heard beyond this issue great disputes about the implementation.
Follow up, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. As one who was around during the enactment of that bill, I think one of the conditions were that if an entity already had something that was equal or of greater benefit than what the bill called for, then they would not be required to add anything to it. Now, having said that, but your problem is currently the Bureau has jurisdiction over that. What is wrong with the Bureau having jurisdiction over something if they are charged with enforcing the law throughout the state?
That's a great question, Representative Bradstreet. I just think if you have a local school board, a local association that has a good relationship and can solve problems, and they have a dispute resolution process that is working in their local district, we should allow them to use that. I mean, I think as much as we have, we're all going to benefit when educators and school districts are working collaboratively together. And in a lot of districts, that dispute resolution process or that grievance process works well to solve problems. And the bill before you would allow them to continue to work to solve problems if issues arise regarding earned paid leave. So I guess I'm baffled why we wouldn't allow that kind of collaboration to take place if both sides agree.
The follow-up, Mr. Chair, if it's permissible.
Let me just ask if there are any other questions.
Okay.
Representative Bradstreet, are there any other questions for Mr. Kaczynski? Seeing none. Representative Bradstreet, you look like you have a question.
Well, thank you once again, Mr. Chair. We have received some testimony in opposition to this bill from people who are charged with running our schools. And the potential cost is something that they're concerned about. Currently, if the department is charged with enforcing the law, then the department bears at least most of the cost. Could you agree that with enactment of this bill, there might be a danger that the localities would be forced with higher costs in enforcing the law, having to go back to the collective bargaining unit rather than having the state enforce the law?
Yeah, I read that testimony from Maine School Management and I was surprised by it. I think it misunderstands the intent of the bill. Again, the purpose of LD 1823 is to allow school districts to agree with their local associations to use their own dispute resolution process. The school board will have to agree to have this discussion as part of this process. So I did read the testimony, but I need to point out the school board would have agreed to a dispute resolution process. So I'm concerned that now there's a cost being associated with that. We're just asking that this be treated like all the other sections, like Family Medical Leave Act, like other provisions, so that local dispute resolution processes can be utilized that are already in place. We're not creating anything new.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Kaczynski? Seeing none. Thank you, sir, for your time today. And Justin, if you could bring forward Stephen Bailey.
Should be coming through.
To those testifying in opposition to the bill.
Should be coming through.
We see his avatar. Welcome, Mr. Bailey.
Good morning, Representative Sylvester and Senator Hickman and members of the Labor and Housing Committee. Good to see you again this year.
Good to see you, sir.
Thank you very much. And I have listened to the prior testimony. I will be reading our own testimony with regard to opposition to LD 1823. I am Stephen Bailey. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine School Management Association. Today, I'm testifying on behalf of the legislative committees of the Maine School Boards Association and the Maine School Superintendents Association in opposition to LD 1823. Our opposition actually serves the same purpose, though, as what I heard earlier from the testimony. We are trying to eliminate additional cost based on what we think that this bill actually would do. The Department of Labor has the exclusive authority to enforce the earned paid leave law for employers and should remain the enforcement agency. Who better to audit and enforce the rules than the entity that wrote the regulations and engaged stakeholders as recently as 2020? LD 1823 would take enforcement out of the hands of an impartial department and put it in the hands of an arbitrator who is often from outside of Maine. The grievance process the bill creates would cost school districts and by extension, local taxpayers money in the form of arbitration costs for attorneys. And the reason we say this is we know that the Earned Paid Leave Act, some of it is extremely complicated in terms of its implementation. We asked districts for an estimate and it came in between $5,000 and $15,000. This would be per case. LD 1823 and the law it proposes also are necessary since earned paid leave already is provided to educators. This was extensively discussed when LD 369, an act authorizing earned employee leave, was reviewed and ultimately passed in 2019. Educators also receive leave for illness, family illness, bereavement, and have personal leave days and sick bank days. The Department of Labor has the expertise when it comes to earned paid leave and has proven to be fair arbiters. The DOL has a resource page specifically designed to answer questions around earned paid leave for educators. It is located at Maine Department of Labor, Earned Paid Leave, Frequently Asked Questions for Schools, and is at the maine.gov page. It also should be noted that grievances can and do take months to process. Labor disputes should be resolved promptly because it is in the best interest of all parties involved. Why should taxpayers have to shoulder these extra costs to have an out-of-state arbitrator assess a question regarding Maine law when Maine taxpayers already are paying for Maine DOL staff to enforce the provisions of the law? In addition, the cost to the cost of grievances to schools and taxpayers, their effect is to slow the process down. Grievances can take months to process when you consider the time needed for board discussion and the ultimate selection of an arbitrator. There are a few arbitrators acceptable to both sides, and they are in high demand. Arbitrations also are disruptive to learning because they often occur during the school day. They can be as many as 3 to 5 witnesses for the union, people who would otherwise be working that are instead sitting in a room with an arbitrator. If employees are not at their post, the school will need to find someone to fill their position. Conversely, we believe earned paid leave disputes would probably be resolved in a few days with the main DOL process. Our final point is that public education must be student focused. This bill puts the adults in the building ahead of the interest of children. Our students and their parents have had to endure the many disruptions caused by the COVID pandemic, and we need to keep the families we serve our first priority. I'd be glad to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bailey, nice to see you again, sir. I've got 2 questions for you. The MEA just testified that, and I'm going to quote them here, "We have worked with the Department of Labor and the sponsor of the bill to draft language that addresses this issue and provides the clarity we need to hopefully avoid litigation." Have you seen that language that they're talking about?
I've seen the bill. I haven't seen any other language, no.
All right. Is it your association's interpretation that this could subject a school to binding arbitration?
If the arbitration were reached, yes, I would believe that it would be binding.
Thank you, sir.
Representative Gear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good to see you, Mr. Bailey. I just want to make sure I understand clearly what you're saying. Is the assumption in your testimony that any disputes about earned paid leave would go directly to arbitration or would first go through the negotiation process?
No, it would go back to the Department of Labor. And if they could be reached there, then it would go. I mean, if it were allowed in terms of the law as proposed,
in 1823,
would go through the process of the 3 grievance steps that Mr. Kaczynski spoke about. And if not agreed to at the 3rd level, then yes, that it would go to arbitration.
And in the numbers that you provided, was the assumption in the costs, the cost would be associated, those would be the costs associated with arbitration?
That's correct. That's
Okay,
correct.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the committee? I have a quick one, Mr. Bailey. Following up on Representative Bradstreet's questioning, are you saying that there are many school districts that have less generous leave than is provided in this law? Because if they have more generous leave in their contracts, then that leave would take precedence over the earned paid leave.
I would say they have quite generous leave.
That was my intention. And this leave that's already in the contract already has dispute resolution regarding it. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Mr. Bailey? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And Justin, I forgot to cue you. If you could bring in Peter Mills.
I do not have a Peter Mills here. He did supply some testimony, but he's not in the room. I do have Mike Rowland.
Oh, okay, great. Then we are moving to neither for nor against. And Director Rowland, if you could bring him into the room, that'd be
actually Chair Sylvester. I'm not sure how much longer we'll be on this, but I did have somebody emailing me trying to find out if they could testify in favor. But I don't have much information.
They can provide written testimony.
Okay, I'll let them know that.
Assure them that the committee will read it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So if you could bring forward Director Rowland, that would be great.
Should be coming through.
Hello.
Welcome, Director Rowland.
Oh, thank you.
Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year to you too. Thanks. It's good to see you all again. I want to clarify, if I may, just initially that I am testifying in support of.
Oh, we had you as only having written testimony, so we didn't know where you were.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're still working out the bugs over here.
Absolutely. Go ahead, sir.
All right, thank you. Greetings, Representative Sylvester and Senator Hickman and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Labor and Housing. I'm Mike Rowland, the Director of the Bureau of Labor Standards at the Maine Department of Labor. The Bureau of Labor Standards works with businesses to continually improve workplace safety, health, and workplace rights. Excuse me. Our programs include a division of workplace safety and health, Safety Works, the Wage and Hour Division, and the Technical Services Division. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the department in support of LD 1823, an act to amend the enforcement provisions of the law governing earned paid leave. This bill seeks to ensure that employees covered by a collective bargaining agreement are able to resolve disputes over the applicability or enforcement of earned paid leave law through the dispute resolution process in that agreement. The department's Bureau of Labor Standards believes that we have sufficient authority under the statute to enforce Section 637 in the situation anticipated by this bill. And we would exercise that authority were a violation discovered. As our report to the committee will demonstrate, in its first year, we did not receive a single formal complaint regarding any violation of the earned paid leave statute, including regarding employees covered by a collective bargaining agreement expired after January 1st, 2021. However, while we do not believe that the statute or rules as written in any way preclude the inclusion in a collective bargaining agreement of a provision for dispute resolution regarding paid leave designed to be in compliance with the requirements of the statute, the amendment before you will simply clarify that disputes concerning earned paid leave can be subject to local dispute resolution processes. And therefore, we support LD 1823 as amended to clarify the statute in order to avoid any possible controversy. Thanks for your time and attention. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have now or at a future work session.
Thank you, Director Rowland. Representative Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Rowland, thank you. If the department already has the authority to enforce Section 637, why do we need this bill?
In order to clarify that disputes over leave that are in conformance with the section of law can be resolved without a complaint to the Bureau through their collective bargaining agreement dispute resolution process.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Bradstreet. I believe you're on mute, sir.
Yeah, I tried to unmute and anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Rowland, for being here. Could you explain a little bit how the process works if there is a dispute? Do they basically send the department a synopsis or maybe some actually literal minutes or notes of what the dispute is, and then you normally have the knowledge to judge on it or to rule on it? Is that the way it normally works?
No, certainly not. Actually, if there is no formal complaint, we might not even be aware that there is a dispute. If it's resolved through the collective bargaining process and the dispute resolution process, unless we were, if an inquiry were made about the applicability of the statute, in which case we would respond to the inquiry, but wouldn't engage in any kind of enforcement activity unless a complaint arose to us.
Okay. Question, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Allie. This is Dwayne Prescott. I've been there before.
Hello?
And I'm looking to get two, I guess Dr. Goff calls them flippers, made for two.
Representative Prescott?
Oh. Okay. I lost my train of thought there for a moment because of what happened, but I think you've heard some of the testimony about how the localities, the municipalities and school departments are concerned that this might end up costing them a lot of money. Did any of that thought go into the decision-making process at the department when they decided to come out in favor of the bill?
The expense of the dispute resolution process? No, that really wasn't a consideration of ours.
Thank you.
Representative Cuddy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Rowland, for being here today to talk about this bill. I'm trying to think back to my time on the school board, and I don't recall when we bargained with the teachers, we didn't have places where the state wouldn't let us put something in the grievance process, keep it out of the grievance process. Are you aware of anything currently where the state, aside from this, where the state by statute has disallowed two private parties from working an issue through? Are there things like that?
Well, there may be, but that wouldn't be our area of expertise or authority, because I believe in this case, it would belong to the Maine Labor Relations Board to determine whether an article is, a subject of mandatory or other bargaining. And in the instance of the first version of this bill, before it was amended, we had a concern about whether there would be any kind of interference with either the national or the Maine Labor Relations Act and its authority. But that concern has been alleviated by the amendment entirely. But again, I'm not aware, and I wouldn't necessarily be aware of any similar situation.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Garin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Rowland, for being here. I had a question about how many disputes have been brought to you since the enactment of the law have been brought to the Department of Labor.
The answer would be a lot of questions, but no formal complaints. So if by a dispute, you mean like a formal complaint?
Yes.
None whatsoever in the entire year of 2021.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions for Director Rowland? And I just have a clarifying question, Director. So if a municipality called you right now and asked, can we use our collective bargaining agreement to, take care of this dispute that we have, whether over timing or whatever other issue it might be, your answer would be, yes, they can.
My answer would be, you don't need my permission to do that. It's within your authority and the parties in the bargaining agreement's authority, I think, to do that.
And so if I understand your testimony, the clarification is so that people can see it in law. And that clarification was the language that was read by Mr. Kaczynski in his testimony. Is that correct? I believe he read the full amendment, and that's the amendment that you worked on him with?
That is the full amendment.
Okay, thank you very much. I see that Senator Garin has another question.
No, I forgot to lower my hand. I will do that right now.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any other questions? Seeing none. Justin, is there anyone else who wishes to testify on 1823?
No.
Oh, I see that Representative Drinkwater, is it about this bill, sir?
Yes, yes.
I believe Director Rowland may still be there. Is there your question?
No, it's not, sir.
Oh, okay, great. Then
I would just for the workshop, I would just request for the workshop that we could see that this, we could view the amendment that has come into question.
All right, so yes, so Steve, we could make sure that everyone gets it. I believe it was in Mr. Kaczynski's testimony, but he might have just read that orally. So it's been a little bit since I read it. So any other questions regarding this? I see no one else waiting to testify, and so I will close the public hearing on LD 1823. And I will move the chair over to Senator Hickman as the next bill is mine.
Thank you, Chairman Sylvester. Let's see, I'm not on mute. You can hear me, correct? Okay, great. And with that, we'll have our last public hearing for this session. I will open the public hearing on LD 555, an act to expand the rights of public sector employees, presented by Representative Sylvester of Portland. Chairman, the floor is yours.
Thank you, sir. So for those of you who've heard my 20-minute speech about the history of labor in Maine and the history of the strike and how public sector workers in many states have these same rights, and private sector workers all have these rights, you'll be glad to hear that I will not be reading any of that speech today. I think one of the things that you look at in a piece of legislation is the moment in history that you are in. And certainly our public sector workers at this point, and our public sector infrastructure is under enormous attack by the pandemic that we currently find ourselves with and in. And in consultation with the unions who have presented this legislation and that I've worked with to craft it, we have determined that at this time, I'm going to ask my colleagues to move this directly to work session and to vote ought not to pass. And so I will ask that we take that up in the afternoon rather than moving directly to work session, so that we can dispatch with it. And that is the end of my testimony, except to say that I will be on strike during that vote, as I will not vote against public sector workers having the right to strike.
Thank you, Chairman Sylvester. Are there any questions from the committee? And seeing that that is what the bill sponsor is asking the committee to do, unless there is a burning desire for someone who is attending to testify on this bill, you would do so now. But as you can see, we will be moving into work session this afternoon in our work session area and moving that this bill ought not to pass at the request of the bill sponsor. So seeing no people who have their hands raised and who would like to speak on this bill, Mr. Purvis, do you see anyone that I can't see that would like to speak on this bill, given what we've just heard from the bill sponsor?
No hands are raised.
Great, thank you. So with that, I will close the public hearing on LD 555. And I believe that we are finished with our morning session. Our public hearings went well. It is 11:37. We do have work sessions at 1, and I will recognize Chairman Sylvester to talk about that as well. Thank you. You're on mute, sir.
Well, I won't be able to sing as I did just then. I hit the note just perfectly. I will never be able to hit it that way again. So I'll just say that I would encourage anyone who feels that they need to caucus on these bills, since we have plenty of time, to go ahead and do that amongst themselves. And I will let you know that we have had a request from the Commissioner of Labor to talk to us directly at 1 o'clock. There's been an issue that she wanted to bring forward to us. And so I would ask that people are back directly at 1 o'clock if you would like to hear what the commissioner said. And I did give her permission to speak to us for a couple minutes on that. I believe you'll want to hear it. So that is all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I do believe that we will be in a different mode for our work session at 1 o'clock for this panel. Is that correct, Mr. Purvis?
I apologize. What's a clarifying question?
I
for
just
me?
wanted to clarify that we will have the same webinar or committee meeting that we had last session for our work session beginning
Yes,
at
we'll be
1.
doing a-
So if
we'll-
we need to do any caucusing, we can still do it in the same way we did before.
Yes, it is set up
decided
for that format.
Okay,
yes.
great. So that's for everyone to know. If folks are going to caucus between now and then, I guess you're on your own, but starting at 1, we will have the same format as last session so that if we need to caucus before votes, we can do that as well. So with that, the committee will stand adjourned until 1 p.m. Enjoy your lunch, take a good break, rest your eyes, and see you after lunch.
Want to set up a Zoom call for us for 12:40, comma Dick, question mark?